folks. GG here. Wait a second. There it goes. Alright, so we are here live right now. John-Polk just got into town over here in Oceanside, California. And as... I don't think I mentioned it last week, but in case you didn't know, Cortana is going to be not here for a couple of months for various reasons. Which, you might have noticed we had Darren filling in her seat last week. And this week we will probably have John filling in. We'll see about that. But at the very least... Alright, my cousin's here. What's happening, Lainey? Man, you're quick. We just started like 2 seconds ago. How are you already here? That's amazing. So filling in not only Cortana's seat, literally, right now, but also filling in for her bedroom while she's gone for a couple of days, is none other than Reverend John-Polk. What's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm just glad to be here.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here, too. You know what I just realized? I'm, really hungry.
Yeah, I know, I'm starving.
We're going to have to figure that out later. I just realized that. You ever have one of those days where you realize you haven't eaten all day? Yeah, that's right now. All right, yeah, first time being number one. There you go, lady. That's actually there's a pretty tough competition going for first comment lately, and although this isn't really an official show, so I don't know if that really counts, but that's like half a point. I'll give you half of a gold star, lady. There you go. With that said, so originally we were going to do. This was my idea, is we were going to do a live commentary over the new David Wilcock documentary. I wanted to use a different name right then, but I'm not going to say it. And that is Above Majestic, a very interesting documentary. Everybody's been talking about it. That's originally what we were going to do, but then we thought about it and realized that's not a very good idea. So we decided not to do that, and instead, we were just having a fascinating conversation over at the bar, and by the bar I mean the other end of my apartment. And so I wanted to, I literally told him, stop, let's save that, because I want to record this. And so here we go. By the way, if anybody is listening, which apparently there's a couple of you, I see, Joe Roop's show, Lighting the Void, starts in 14 minutes. I just want to put this disclaimer out there. Don't listen to us. Listen to Joe Roop's show instead on the Fringe FM, which comes on in 14 minutes, because you can always come back and listen to this later. All right. I think we're out of trouble, right? That's good. All right. We're ready to go.
Let's roll.
I'm going to reiterate that throughout the show, especially at 9 o'clock. With that said, so, chemtrails, what's it called?
Aqueous
chemtrails. That was the thing I really wanted to start off with, but right before we started, we will get to that. You mentioned Caroline Corey. I terribly misspelled her name, but that's her name. And okay, I'm going to start this show off very unorthodoxly. And that is, he explained a whole thing, and I got a solution out of it. So I'm just going to state what I got out of it, and then see if that fits with what you said. Like you were saying, with multiple layers, if you want to call it that, multiple dimensions of magnetic ley lines and everything else. Because I was watching another documentary the other day. I want to say it was Dr. Stephen Greer's movie.
Unacknowledged.
Unacknowledged, yeah. There was a guy on there who, he basically put it like this. Not only did the nuclear bomb that we set off, bombs in Japan back in World War II, not only did that totally ruin, our situation, but he was like, who knows how many other dimensions felt that same blow, not to mention we might have caused more damage in those dimensions than we even caused here. And I thought I've been thinking about that for a while. Like, man, he might actually have a point there, because we don't, and it obviously ever since, it wasn't just a couple years later, we have Roswell, and then all of a sudden, Although there is, for sure, there's evidence of UFOs going back in ancient paintings, like dating hundreds, if not a couple thousands of years ago. That's always there. That's true. But in modern times, it's pretty coincident. I think I just invented a word right there. Coincident with, the nuclear explosion. Next thing you know, we're seeing UFOs, and they're kind of saying, like, hey, what's going on here? The way I look at it, it's kind of like if we were going to go into a forest and we saw a monkey that had like a rocket launcher that it made out of bamboo and bananas. We'd be like, okay, wait, stop right here. Let's pick this guy up, take him out, bring him in this cage. Let's question this guy. How the hell did you make that? And I think that maybe, this is a wild theory, maybe that might be what's going on with people. And not to mention, the UFO flyovers, all these, all of the nuclear bases, plenty of evidence for that. Once again, unacknowledged is a good source of information on that. But I just have a feeling that those nuclear bombs pretty much alerted everyone in the near universe, I guess you could say, that, hey, we're causing problems right here. Look at us right now. And with that said, how does that relate to what you just told me about Caroline Corey?
So the basic concept behind what she was talking about is that, of course, there's the Earth grid and all the geodetic markers where all the pyramids and the obelisks and different ritual sites all around the country and all around the world exist that tap into Mother Gaia's energy. And if you think about what the core of the Earth is made of, it's made out of iron and nickel, and it spins. And the magma around the iron and nickel core spins also, and so does the plate tectonics of the planet also. And it's this monster conductor of energy, and that's why the pyramids and the obelisks and all of these, megalithic structures made out of stone with capstones made out of quartz crystal, were in this integral system around the planet, including Antarctica, all the continents, everything. And in my mind, the monster master computer / pyramid is in Antarctica, which creates this standing wave. And a standing wave is a wave that is always going. It doesn't stop. And you can tap into it. And the ancient Egyptians and the Anunnaki would wear like gold bracelets and things that resembled wristwatches, and would carry staffs that were about the height of their own heads so that it would connect with their pineal gland, so that they could connect with this free energy source. And also there was engineered craft that could tap into it also. So there's your Earth grid for that purpose. But now let's extrapolate that. So there's this obvious Earth grid that Plato described as platonic solids, which I believe was 52 triangles that triangulated the entire Earth and made this grid on these geodetic markers at all of the points of the three-pointed triangles. And then, so now imagine that there's another layer of it, let's say 1,000 feet above it. And then there's another layer of it 1,000 feet beyond that. And that this grid replicates itself from the Earth in the center as concentric circles. And these concentric circles that are all around the Earth, they don't just stop at some point at the end of our atmosphere. They go to the moon, they go to Mars, they go to all of the planets. And all of the planets also have a grid also. If they don't have an atmosphere, they still have a grid, which exudes energy from it. And so Mach's principle, which is all matter in the universe, affects all matter in the universe. So potentially, like the asteroid belt, which was destroyed during one of the Anunnaki wars back in the day, right? That created the asteroid belt. It used to be a planet.
Okay, real quick, what planet was that?
I think it was Martok.
Oh, that's right. Anyway, keep going.
But anyway, you can mathematically determine where these planets are supposed to be, almost like it was pre-articulated. So let's imagine I'm a creator God alien, like Yahweh, the biblical God, is an alien. So let's say I'm a creator God alien. I don't just create religion on Earth so everybody worships me. I created on multiple planets. I started it on Mars, among other planets. So how much prayer energy and how many souls do I get from you praying to me? And Gigi and I were talking about this earlier, is that Christianity, so tomorrow, how many people are going to pray to an alien for Thanksgiving? If you pray to God, which is in the Bible, you're literally praying to an alien. And same thing with Christmas also.
And that's the same point behind the sacrifices in South America is those sacrifices were essentially a form of prayer to these negative entities that I guess they thought were positive or something. But it's the same concept, basically.
Yeah, and even Jesus Christ was, hung on, or, crucified on the cross. But what I'm getting at is that these layers of this grid expand exponentially into the omniverse. They do. So my whole point behind the asteroid belt is that when a planet is destroyed, it affects all the other planets around it. Deepak Chopra spoke of all cells in the body are in constant communication with all cells in the body at all times, which forms your form of stasis within your own body, mind, spirit. So just like we have a body, mind, spirit, so does the Earth, and so do all the planets. And they actually have their own vibration frequency, and they can also communicate. And you can actually detect sounds in outer space that come from different planets, and it sounds different. Each planet sounds different because they're in constant communication with each other. So it's amazing how much every celestial body, not just in our solar system, in our galaxy, but they all affect each other. And that's why, going back to your point, when you explode nuclear devices, it affects everything. And it can actually affect the spirit of the planet. Mother Gaia hurts, every time.
Not just Mother Gaia, Mother Universe.
Mother
hurts.
Universe. And
multiple
it affects,
dimensions. Yeah.
And that's exactly to your point. Back in 1945, we were experimenting with nukes. Back in White Sands, New Mexico.
Yeah, and what's interesting with that is we don't even have time to get into it, but I do want to point out, because you just mentioned before Manhattan Project, before they started figuring that stuff out, there was some random Gandalf-looking wizard guy in France who put out a book called Mysteries of the Cathedrals. No, we're in California, Kat. I'm in Oceanside now. Well, we are in Oceanside now, and Reverend
is that
John.
Catalina?
Yeah, that's Kat.
Oh, hey, Kat.
Yeah, and he's just passing through in town. We both don't have any plans for Thanksgiving, so we decided to not have plans together, and that's pretty much the plan. Although we do.
We're going to a friend of ours' house.
Yeah, I don't know if we should. Yeah, but
anyway,
OG fan, not of our show, of our friend's show. Anyway, you all know her, you all love her. We'll save her name just in case. But yeah, so that guy in France in the 1930s, his name was Fulcanelli. Look it up. Type in, just go to YouTube. Type in Fulcanelli, fade to black, Jay Widener. I know I'm not supposed to say that show's name, but this isn't on the network, so I'm pretty sure I'm good. If I'm not, I'm sure I will hear about it in about 5 minutes from now. Speaking of 5 minutes from now, Joe Roop's show is about to come on in 3 minutes. If you're listening to my show, stop, because Joe Roop's show is coming on. You can come back and listen to this later. I couldn't have made that any more clear, I don't think. All right, and with that said, yeah, John's in town. How cool is that? So, but here's the... Okay, before we get further into all of that, Fulcanelli, look it up. So this guy... In fact, I talked to David Adair about this a couple of months ago. And that is... There was this... I'm sure he wasn't the first guy... See, this is kind of weird because you're over here, but my mic is over here. So I'm kind of trying to balance the two. But here's the thing, is this guy put out a video on YouTube a few years ago. Well, a couple of years ago. And then he took it down. Other people have uploaded it, but it keeps getting taken down. But basically the point of the video is that even according to NASA's facts sheet, if you actually do the mathematics when it comes to measuring the mass of a planet relative to the mass of another planet, when you actually go through the equation, and I followed him right along. I had a piece of paper. I was doing the math by myself just to make sure he wasn't bullshitting me. Sure enough, what happens is the mass of both planets cancel. So you're trying to figure out the mass of a planet, but the mass cancels out, which means, to put it in perspective, let's say you're trying to move a couch that's 6 feet wide into a room that's approximately 10 feet wide. Obviously, you want to figure out where you're going to put it. Well, if you put it in mathematical form, and then all of a sudden it turns out that according to the equation, it doesn't matter how big the room is. In other words, the room could be only 3 feet wide, yet the equation still gives you an answer that makes it look like that there's a solution. Yet, if you actually try to put that 6-foot couch into a 3-foot room, you're going to find, oh, wait, this doesn't work. And that's what this guy just pointed out about the mass of the planets, and that's just a tipping point. From there, you go deeper, and you realize, oh, NASA doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. So with that, and then I actually, David Adair was on Joe Roop's show, which, by the way, starts in 1 minute. Do listen to that instead of us. So he was on his show the other day. Wow. I mean, that was a few months ago. And I asked him specifically that. I was a little bit nervous about, because nobody's talking about this. And I wasn't sure how the public would react to it. So I figured out what better way. Let's not do it on my show. I'm going to call on Joe's show and put it there. So it'll be his fault. And but David Adair even straight up said, he was like, yeah, absolutely. The math is wrong, for sure. Like, no questions asked. I was like, dude, if you know David Adair. Right?
I do. I was one of the very first to interview him, actually.
I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, see, the fact that David Adair even admits to that, arguably one of the most, not just the most brilliant brains that function in reality, but he also has a lot of real experience. Everything from Area 51 to you name it. Like, he's, this guy's been around. And he's one of those no-nonsense guys. Like, if he says something, he said it for a reason, and it's very well calculated beforehand. And with that said, I just want your general reaction to what I just said, including the fact that David Adair acknowledged that mishap in the mathematics, which basically means, also to put in perspective, Mars could be the size of a golf ball, or it could be the size of Mars, and the math still works either way. Which means, if that's the way that we know what shape it is, how do we know how big it is? Because the math clearly tells us that the actual mass doesn't even matter in the first place. How does that register to you right off the bat?
No, it's a brilliant question. Also, you have to consider what dimension is the mass in. So, for example...
Oh, you just took this to a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, so, for example, Arcturus, where the Arcturians are from, is like this big red giant that's like as big or bigger than our sun that's on fire. So how can any sentient being live there? Well, you're only thinking that it's in the third dimension. The Arcturians are debatable. It's either 7th or 9th dimensional. They're 9th or 7th dimensional beings, so therefore their planet is. But in the third dimension, it's on fire. But in the 7th or 9th dimension, it's a lush wonderland, with waterfalls, and it's always at dusk, and nobody gets sunburnt, and the skies are purple and magenta, and it's beautiful. So that's where I go with that. But what's really interesting about David Adair, he was discovered when he was 13 years old. And next thing you know, he's like 14, and he's at Area 51, and he's teaching the scientists what is up with this symbiotic engine. The symbiotic engine is the one that is connected to the spirit and the mind of the pilot, the navigator. What kind of engine is that? And they're using those in the military right now with the F-22s, where their brains are basically navigating these vehicles. But the difference is that the brains are navigating the vehicles, but in the symbiotic engine, right, your spirit is connected to the engine. The engine is not even an engine. It's a power source that's alive. And so is the pilot. And they have this kind of synergistic connection where it's all not necessarily mental, but spiritual. So these pilots are literally spiritually connected to these vessels that are alive, which is incredible. And something else that he created when I think he was like 15 or 16 is the fusion containment engine. So when nuclear devices go into critical mass where there's an explosion, right? Instead of it exploding, he harnesses the power and uses it as a source of propulsion. Where back in the day, he's like 15 years old, he creates this engine, and the military wants to weaponize it because it can go 8,000 miles in 4 seconds. So the U.S. could bomb Russia or China in 4 seconds. And it's just amazing to think about. So get this. So he deliberately destroyed his own rocket. He destroyed his own rocket because David Adair, because he knew that the military was going to weaponize it.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. Anyway, that all came out during the interview I did with him, which was over the top incredible.
How long ago is that still up on your archive on Spreaker?
It is. Yeah.
How long ago was that, would you say? Guesstimate.
I don't know.
Well, if you just
last year, probably. Eric at Awakening Man on Twitter, he set me up with the whole interview because, everybody who knows Eric, he travels the country and he just loves to get all up in the cookies of every speaker and,
How come
and pick
he
at their
hasn't
brain.
hooked me up? What the hell? How come he hasn't hooked me up with David Adair? What is this nonsense?
Well, anyway, I mean,
so I've got, you brought up a really good point. First of all, David Adair is a genius. Point taken. Second of all, negative. First of all, Kat just pointed out that Joe wasn't feeling good yesterday, and he's not live now, which means he's not doing a show.
He did
but he did your show yesterday.
He did, and I don't want to get personal, but he doesn't feel good, so let's just go there.
Good. Okay, so with that said, first of all good vibes and prayers out to Joe. After all, he's the one that keeps this network running, although this show is not on the network. This is our B-Sides episode, in case you're curious. But yeah, prayers out to him. But the positive consequence of that is that we're not overlapping his show. So I actually cannot get in trouble. I'm pretty excited about that. But I do wish Joe gets better very soon at the exact same time. Yes, I agree, Kat. Eric is absolutely from another planet, not anywhere close to being a human being.
Is.
I mean, you thought Cortana was an alien. Man. Eric,
he's one of those tall Nords. he's one of those tall Nords. He is, man.
We love Eric so much that we actually give him a credit at the end of our show, even though he doesn't really do anything. We just do a special shout out to Eric at the end. That's how influential he is.
He's helped me a lot in my career. I mean,
honestly, he has helped me.
He has helped me in my career.
In fact,
let's go there.
I would have never met you if it wasn't for Eric
at Alien Snowfest.
Absolutely, man. I forgot about that. By the way, are you going? Did you hear they're doing another one?
I did.
Are you going?
I don't know.
Apparently, nobody like our crew isn't going.
When is it exactly?
Like I know Jimmy's
February?
not going. And I know Rita's not going.
Is it February?
Yeah, it's a little bit later than usual. It's like... No. It's late January. It's like January 25th.
Okay.
Or something like that. I want to go, but nobody that we know is going. So if nobody else is going to go...
The last one was over the top awesome. Remember the star-studded cast that was there? So let's start throwing out some of the names. Stanton Friedman was there. Okay. Richard Dolan was there.
Kat was there.
Catalina was there, and I met her, and she taught me how to meditate through my navel instead of my... Well, you meditate through all the above, but, you do the little circle thing around your navel, and anyway, and that goes back to, like, the ancient Eastern healing modalities. So I learned a lot from her, hanging out with her, and then Micah Hanks was there. and
Yeah.
Mike Barrow was there. Linda Moulton Howe was there. We watched the Super Bowl with Linda Moulton Howe.
Yeah, and that was my first. I think that was the first conference I ever did, because at that time I was still co-hosting Beyond the Strange.
Yeah.
And that was my first conference I ever did after actually being involved in this industry or community, whatever you want to call this thing. And yeah, it was pretty. See, here's the beautiful thing about that conference. First of all, the guy that ran the whole thing was a total asshole. He ripped off pretty much everybody that was speaking there. He talked a lot of smack about a lot of us that we all ended up hearing afterwards, which is why everybody that was doing that conference is not going there this year. It's a whole new lineup. But at the same time, it was really cool because, first of all, it's on the Big Bear Lake, which is it called Big Bear Lake? It's just Big Bear.
It's a ski resort.
Why is
community.
it called lake? Why is the word lake thrown in
There
there?
is a lake up there, I think.
But it's at the top of a mountain and it's frozen anyway. So why is it called a lake? Anyway, pretty much nowhere you would ever go. So long story short, there were about just as many attendees as there were speakers, which
was perfect.
Perfect. See, from a business standpoint, obviously that guy lost some money, which is why he lost his temper and flipped out on everybody. But for all of us, because I was half attendee, half business, basically, from my standpoint. And I got to know, for example, there's so few, one morning I woke up, me and my sister, Blair, had breakfast with, get a load of this, me, Jimmy, Rita, Linda Moulton Howe, Mike Barra, Micah Hanks, oh my God, who else was there?
Jason Martell.
No, he wasn't at breakfast that morning.
Oh.
There was another. You weren't there either.
No,
but there
not
was
at the
somebody else.
breakfast.
Anyway, just an epic breakfast. In fact, Jimmy told a story for quite a while about how he almost died choking on food that morning. I'm here to tell you, it really was not that bad. He choked on some food. He wasn't even close to dying. I just want to put that out there. It was epic, though. It was definitely a breakfast stopper, but nothing too gnarly. But yeah, so that was the thing. So pretty much every attendee got to speak to whoever they wanted to because it was a whole weekend. There was only maybe 50 attendees. Maybe. It was very small.
And we hung out with Jimmy Church every night.
And they rented
and
that.
Rita, and they turned us on to food and spirits every night, and they were just as cool as they could have been.
Here's a fun fact, is Mike Barra would have missed his talk if it wasn't for me going 5 miles out of my way to go pick him up because he missed his alarm clock. And I picked him up and made him on time. That's right, folks. I did that. And then also the coolest thing was, that's when I really got to, me and Micah Hanks really, became bros, I guess you could say, that weekend, because we hung out all weekend. Then after that, I drove him all the way to Hollywood, which is like a several-hour drive. He had never, believe it or not, Micah Hanks had never been to Hollywood before. So I showed him around. We walked around. We went to the diner right there on Hollywood and Highland and everything. And then I took him to the airport, and that was a magical trip. So for me, that was, ironically, one of the best conferences ever, even though from a business standpoint, it was one of the worst successful conferences of all time.
Yeah, I agree. Stargate to the Cosmos was an awesome conference, but we didn't have the attendees that we had hoped that we would have had. But so I hung out with Michael E. Hill and Randy Kramer and Laura Eisenhower.
Same thing.
And Len Kasten and Solaris Blue Raven, who's going to be on my show, Quantum Hologram Matrix, next Tuesday, 5 to 7 Pacific.
There you go.
Shameless plug there. And Brad Olson. hung out with all of them, every day, because there wasn't a whole lot going on. And there was more people in the panel discussion than there were in the room at some points. Dr. Sasha and Janet Lesson, we all hung out and just became better friends than we were before. So it was really cool. And I'll tell you, the most successful part of the whole conference, besides us seeing 47 UFOs over 2 nights at the Skywatches on that Friday and Saturday, the October 26th and 27th, was karaoke. and I'm a DJ karaoke guy from Orlando, Florida, and the guy who was putting on the audio video for the conference, Ron James, did a great job, and he wired it so he could do karaoke through the big screen where they were doing all the videos and movies and stuff. So
beautiful.
Oh, it was awesome. So
Yes.
I'm hanging out and singing karaoke with
Man.
Laura Eisenhower and Michael Lee Hill and Brad Holmes
Dude,
and
I
the
was
gang.
supposed to go to that,
Oh,
too.
it was so fun,
I
man.
totally would have done some Class A Frank Sinatra karaoke,
Oh.
son.
It was too cool.
Oh, my goodness.
That was besides seeing the
But once
UFOs,
again,
that was the
very
best part.
small turnout, which resulted in a very awesome experience for the very few people that were there.
Oh, and Geraldine Orozco, got to meet her. Brilliant. Love her.
Who is? I don't know who.
Geraldine Orozco.
What does she do?
She teaches you how to reconnect with the buried consciousness of your DNA. So let's go there.
Very well said. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah, let's go
and
there.
I'm sure I said it wrong, but that's the best way I can explain it.
that got me
And
very
she is-
intrigued.
Oh, she's absolutely masterful, brilliant. And then Misha Johnston was the one who conducted the UFO tours, and she does it in Vegas, out at the Red Rock, somewhere out of Vegas. She knows the spot. I'm not sure where it is, but somewhere out of Vegas.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you say Red Rocks, I immediately think of Colorado. But there's other Red Rocks in other places.
Yeah, Utah, and of course Sedona, where I used to live and work as a medium out there. But anyway,
A lot
and
of
then,
Red Rocks.
and then Tana Newberry. I don't know if anybody knows her or not. She is awesome. She is such a powerful light worker. She was at the conference also, and her and Misha work a lot with women that have been abused, and it's important to them. It's a pilgrimage for them, and especially Misha does a show on Facebook. I think it's 3 to 6 Eastern on Facebook.
Just on Facebook?
I'm not sure. I'm sure she's got it on a bunch of platforms, but whatever. And she knows how to call them in. I mean, I know how to do it. Psh, I learned so much from sitting there and just being a student, you know, like, oh, okay, that's how you do it. So I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Dude, okay. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering why I'm holding my vape pen like a douchebag, that's because this is the radio host technique to hit a vape pen. You cover up the holes around the side so it doesn't make any noise, and then you hit it.
I remember back in the day, you'd be like, it's like, dude,
Oh, very fun fact.
dude.
By the way,
calling
yeah.
you out, man.
Dude.
That's not professional.
This is such a funny story. So John was actually the first guest we ever had on this show. And the Fringe was already looking to pick us up after that episode. But the only reason that they waited a few episodes was because they were like, dude, this guy doesn't even know how to not vape in the microphone. Like that was the whole
Really?
problem.
I
And it
didn't know
took
that.
like 3 more episodes before we got on. Because of that. So yeah, that's how you don't do that. Is you do that and you look like an asshole, but it doesn't make any noise. Well, I just made a noise to try to audibly demonstrate that to you folks, but you can't really see this, can you? Okay, so once again, Kat, real quick, can you double check, make sure? I don't think I've ever asked an audience member to do anything, but Kat, can you check and make sure Joe's not live, and just confirm that because I'll feel a lot better about this. And but yeah, with that said, yeah, so we've got now I do want to get back to the chemtrails in a minute, but before we do that, so what's the next conference that you're going to be at?
I've been invited to a lot of them. I'm not sure exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm moving back to Florida just so I can make some money. I can be more lucrative there. And, you know, give me a few months and then I'll be able to travel around the country again. So I've been traveling around the country for, I don't know, a year and a half now. It's been crazy. I've been couch surfing and being a gypsy, and I owned a house in Florida for 15 years. I've never done anything like this before in my life, and I'm very, 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 very ready to just find a permanent location. But as my soul's on this journey, I guess it's not quite time yet.
Well, we're both here right now, and yeah, so he's basically like half of an Eric. You know, imagine how much traveling Eric does. You're basically on the Eric program, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I have resources. I sold my house last year and then moved to Sedona, and that was good. And the whole reason, I don't know if everybody knows it or not, the reason I moved away from Sedona is because I was getting abducted by the military labs. And the military labs are actually being run by reptilians. And when I first said it, I was kind of sheepish about it. I was kind of scared to say it. And then Misha Johnston came out and said, "Oh yeah, it happened to me too." And Tana Newberry came out and said, "Yeah, oh yeah, it happened to me too." And then Kathleen Marden, who co-authors books with Stanton Friedman, says, "I've researched it. It's totally real." Tom Dongo, who has authored 7 books and is famous for his research at Bradshaw Ranch.
We've actually had him on the show before.
Right, yeah. Right. Good friend of mine. If you want to go to Bradshaw Ranch, he's the tour guide to take you there. He'll take you right up to where the gate says, "All right, you're going to go to prison if you go any closer." So don't go. And then Melinda Leslie, who used to work at the Center for the New Age.
Oh, she's great.
Yeah, she's way better psychic than I am, that's for sure. But she has UFO tour. UFOsightings.tour.com. And if you don't see a UFO, you get your money back. And we became buddies and hung out a lot. So, but she will also tell you that she was abducted by the MyLabs, by the reptilians, and that they sent dreams to her mind. They sent dreams to her mind where they were pulling her arms and her legs out of socket.
Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up.
I mean, literally pulling her arms, and if you don't shut up, Melinda, we're going to yank your arms and legs out of your body. And she's so powerful, she's not going to, she has a sovereign soul. She's not going to let anybody do that to her, or anything for that matter.
Oh yeah, she's a tough cookie. Now that reminds me of something I really wanted. I'm glad you brought it up because I want to go here before we are going to get to the chemtrails, which once again was initially what drove us to do this.
Right.
We still haven't got to it yet. By the way, Liz, is that you? The one that I'm supposed to marry very soon? Is that you? If so, hey, what's happening? What's going on, Alan? Hey, yeah, I really didn't expect this many people to show up. So once again, I don't know if there's anything live on the Fringe FM, but if there is, you should go listen to that instead of listening to us, because you can come back here at any time, and then that way nobody complains and I don't get in trouble. But I'm pretty sure that there's no show right now. I think this is this is just meant to be. You know, Joe's sick, God bless him. Send him your prayers, send him your vibes. But at the same time, it's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's me and John. We are here to save the day on the radio airwaves. That's right, son. Man. All right, with that, so now back to dreams. Okay, because I have had, especially since I've been taking Alpha Brain. Have you ever tried Alpha Brain?
I've heard of it. Does it work?
Yeah. Well, basically, it's a nootropic, which, in layman's terms, it's like a vitamin, but it's for your brain rather than your body. Mm-hmm. Your brain works better. You talk faster. You're more Darren McClurry, basically, and your brain just works better. But in unattended, hey, what's up, Alan? I see you, buddy. And an unattended side effect of that is it gives you extremely vivid dreams. Completely unattended. It's just made out of roots and herbs, and there's no artificial. It's all natural stuff put together in a capsule, and you take it. And so here's the thing. Even without that, it seems like once you take it, you break a barrier of vividness in your dreams. But there's also lucidness, which, for people who aren't very familiar with this, vivid means you remember your dream very clearly. But lucid means you are aware that you are dreaming in the dream, which means you have a certain level of control. Now, with that said, I have had several dreams over the last couple of years, quite specifically since I've been taking Alpha Brain, where, okay, not only is the dream reoccurring in the same place, so much so that every time I dream in that place, I know my way around that area like I know my own neighborhood where I grew up. Like, I remember where everything is. On top of that, I have relationships with other people that in the dream, I have years of memories of that relationship, all different kinds of little jokes and incidents that happened years before that time that I'm dreaming in. And it's like, okay, and then here's the kicker. 2 kickers in one. First of all, artwork and music that happens in dreams. For example, there was one dream where I saw a very famous band playing that everybody knows, but they were playing a song that doesn't exist. It's never been written. Yet, in the dream, it was 100% fully orchestrated, drums, guitar, bass. It was perfect. It was a killer song. And then I woke up. I was like, dude, what is that? And I looked it up like, oh, that doesn't exist. Like, so I have a very hard time believing that my brain actually produced that music in the dream. I really feel like I was tapping into some other dimension or some other plane of existence where that song, the multiple universe theory, in, this universe, they wrote 10 songs and these were the songs. In the other universe, that one song got replaced with this one or whatever, It's just blatantly off. It seems very apparent to me. There's no way that my brain was making that shit up on the fly and that it was so beautifully orchestrated. I really feel like I was tapping into another reality that I may or may not actually be a part of, and I don't even realize it.
No, I find that interesting because Paul McCartney said a lot of the music that he wrote, it wasn't him. It came from some ethereal realm, and he was just basically free writing. And it flowed into songs that changed the world. And same thing with Brahms, who was a very mechanical composer. He'll tell you the same thing. He's like, I think it's called the Madonna Butterfly or something like that. He's like, I didn't compose that. Yeah. That was like automatic writing for me, and it just came out. And talking about dreams is very interesting. That I had this dream where I was at this house that I grew up in. Okay. My childhood house, from 5 to 15 before we moved to the condo on the beach in Daytona. And I see this guy come up with a gun, and I'm standing next to a couple people that I did not know, but I felt like I knew them. And he's coming up to me with a gun, and he says something to me, and I start to fly. All of a sudden, I can fly. How many people have had that dream where you can actually fly and levitate in front of people?
Oh, that's another thing about dreams.
Dude.
The flying, it makes so much sense.
Yes,
the physics
so
and
cool.
everything, it just totally, it makes so much sense. But keep going.
And so I he's got a gun. So I go into my house, and there was a window right by the front door. And the next thing I know, he's coming in through the window, and he shoots the gun at me. And right before the bullet hits me, he pops out of my body, and I wake up, and I see this red orb in my bedroom. And I'm like, oh, my God. And I immediately figured it out, that this entity was trying to travel through me, through my soul, to another dimension. So since our soul exists in all dimensions, these entities can travel through your soul into another dimension in which you exist. And so my first reaction is to swat at it violently, and I realized, no, you don't treat anger or hate with anger and hate. You treat it with love. So I send it light, and all of a sudden it just vanished. But what it meant to me is that this entity entered me through my dreams to be able to travel to an other reality that my quantum hologram matrix soul exists in. And that's what I got out of this dream in the whole dream stasis. So where do you go? Where are you? If people who are trying to understand multiple dimensions, how we exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, well, let's start with dreams.
Bam.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
Me and Gigi and I, actually, are hanging in his studio here in California, but where are we in another dimension?
Definitely not doing this. And and real quick, Alan just made a very good point that is very controversial, but I will publicly agree with. Is, first of all, he started off with bro. Got to give you props for that. And then he says microdoses of psilocybin mushrooms actually rebuilds dead brain cells and synapses. I totally butchered that last word, but I totally agree. 100%. Synapses. I think
is
that's
that plural.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's called.
Synapsi.
Synapsi. Yes, I agree 100%,
No,
Alan. Very good call.
It's
And
good
then he
information.
said
Good information.
something else. Let me make sure. I'll just read it because I can't understand it. We all channel music, poems, and anti-gravity propulsion. At 15 years old, he played awake many nights designing iron propulsion. I definitely was not doing that when I was 15.
I don't understand. Educate me. What does that mean?
Well,
iron propulsion?
I think what he says. Actually, Alan, can you clarify that? Because that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if he's talking about.
No, it sounds intriguing. I just don't know what it means.
I'm not sure if he's talking about real life or dreams. I think he's talking about real life. At 15 years old, he played awake. That's the part that's doesn't
he played awake.
Yeah, can you clarify that, Alan? I know you're still there. Yeah, what? Can you say that again? Can you reword that? Because that sounds very interesting, and I definitely wasn't doing anything like that at all. The only other person that did anything interesting at 15 years old is like Dr. Richard Allen Miller, and that's about it, unless you're like a Hollywood actor or something. But yeah, see, okay, so yeah, a lot of dots connected after everything you just said. Yeah, there's just something about. Go ahead.
And dream walking. That's what you were doing. When you're at least halfway or somewhat in control of your dreams, you know what I'm saying? Where you're dictating your thoughts and your actions as opposed to it just unfolding in front of yourself.
So like
that's something that I am still learning to do myself, and I'm able to teach people how to do.
See, that's lucid dreaming.
Dream walking, lucid dreaming, yes.
Yeah.
And so what do you do with it? What do you do with it? And what I try to do, instead of having sex with some beautiful girl, which I've done before, in lucid dreaming, whatever. But what you want to do is help people. You want to be this light worker that goes to these countries that are war torn and famine ridden. Those are the things you want to do. You want to be able to use your dream walking to help other people instead of helping yourself. And if you want to help yourself, the best way to help yourself is to help other people, because you can.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because I usually find myself in dreams. Well, half the time I'm either trying not to die, or I'm trying to not get arrested for something. And then the other half,
you're one of those runners like me. I'm always running.
It's always
running.
Like the other night, the dream was me and my parents. For some reason, my sister wasn't there, which is ironic because she gets in the most trouble. But anyway, our whole family, except for my sister, was running away from the FBI. Like the whole dream, it was like it was one of those dreams where you wake up
and you're sweating,
and then
stuff.
You go back to sleep, right back where you left off in the dream, it would not go away.
I know.
Oh my god! I didn't want to do it. It keeps happening.
It just happened.
But then the other half of the time is just not much of a point, just sort of exploring a world that I'm not very familiar with. Like nothing bad or very good happens. It's just like a weird. And I would say that's about 1/4 of the time. 3/4 of the time, it's usually a pretty negative situation to where I have to worry about number one first. And then here's the other point that I find very interesting. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and that's the point of, when you're getting somebody shoots a gun at you, or you jump off a building, or you fall off a building, or whatever. Right before you die, you always wake up. Happens every time. Especially, I know for a fact for me, I've definitely, God, I can't even tell you how many times that's happened, where I was about to die in the dream and then I woke up. And a lot of people will tell you, if you actually die in your dream, then you're going to die in real life too.
Like in the Matrix.
Your
mind makes it real.
Basically. And so what do you think about, as far as I've observed, that seems pretty true, because I'm still alive and I've never actually died in my dream. I always wake up right before. Is that really, if you die in another dimension, are you dying here too? Is that...
it begs the question. I can't be exactly sure. But what happens to me is I'll kick my leg or my body will move or contort and wake me up right before, and I'll wake up all sweaty, and I kind of look around and go, whoa, dude, what just happened? And I'm like, oh, I'll be breathing in. Like,
dude, that is a great technique. Yeah, I do the same thing. I mean, there are times where if you're lucid enough and you know something terrible is going to happen, usually when you're like, you can feel your real body in this dimension, but you can't really move it. And so when something bad's about to happen, I just start trying to shake my body as much as possible, and eventually, oh my God. You know? Like, I'm sure everybody knows what I'm talking about when I just did that. Yes, that's what you do. But there's other times where it's not so lucid. It's just very vivid. And you don't have any control over the dream, and you're just along for the ride. And then you're about to die. But then you don't. You wake up magically right before that happens every single time. And that's really fascinating to me.
You want to hear something really interesting? Is
no.
When I was
I
was a teenager, and my mom was telling me, she's like, I went to this psychic, and my mom's pretty psychic, but you know, she's not a full-blown psychic. And she goes to the psychic, and the psychic tells her, when you dream, you leave your body and you help heal sick children, and then you come back into your body before you wake up. And I'm like, wow. So now think about it. When you dream, your soul may have a mission. And get this, your dream is a screen memory for what you're really doing on the other side. And or it's both, or all at the same time. It's debatable. Nobody can prove it. But anyway, that psychic told her that, and it gave me a whole new wrinkle in time about, wow, my soul leaves my body, and I dream, but I don't remember, but I'm actually helping to heal sick children as like an archangel. And I'm like, wow, Mom, that was really good stuff.
Wow. Yeah, and that reminds me of, I mean, it's kind of similar to, you know, when we're born into this life, I think, you know, most people could argue that our soul existed before.
Oh, sure.
And we come in here with past experiences that we can't remember because we're now stuck in this stupid brain that we have. Now, with that said, real quick, yeah, fun fact, Alan, a little, I don't know if you listened to our show a few months ago, but yeah, he was just talking about a near-death experience on ketamine. I actually did official government-approved ketamine treatment, believe it or not, a few months ago. Really just to, you know, this is legal? Wow, I want to try it. You know, that's pretty much the whole thought process. And but at the same time, I'm very much, you know, I sound all chip and good on the show, but it's not all fun and games behind the scenes. And, you know, ketamine is definitely a treatment that has been proven to dramatically improve people's depression. And so I tried it for that reason, too. And, wow, very, although I must say, you know, like you said, Alan, you had a near-death experience. Nowhere near that dose of ketamine whatsoever. Very small doses. Almost, you know, the first 2 times I didn't even really notice anything, and then they upped it the second 2 times, and I was like, okay, this is good. And it was a total just, I mean, talk about leaving your ego behind. You just shed your ego. You come into pure consciousness. I don't even know how to describe it. It's kind of like, imagine a really long, you know, a really long, very, what's the word I'm looking for? God damn it. Man, I had it. I ruined it. Right in the middle of it. Can't remember the word. But profound. It was a very profound, kind of like a mushroom experience where you just, you know, you just kind of realize, oh, I fully understand that nothing matters at all. But with the exact opposite, with the exact, you know.
I'm listening intently.
Dude, it reminds me of that old Bill Hicks joke where he was like, it's not, you know, it's not that smoking weed makes you lazy. It's just that it makes you realize that it's not fucking worth it. That kind of experience. That's kind of what you know, you can have that on mushrooms, you can have that on acid, whatever. But the ketamine is it's a lot more subtle. Once again, I've never, you know, I know like a lot of people like, because once I did that show, I had multiple people email me like, how dare you? I can't believe you took ketamine. Like, what the blah, blah, blah. I almost died, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're not the first person, Alan. Multiple people have gotten to me about this. And so that's what I want to stress is it was a very, very low dose. Apparently. I don't know. I've never taken it on the streets. I don't... Trust me. I can't believe I've never taken it on the streets. Actually, I know everybody that sells everything, everywhere. Never came across ketamine. I don't know how you managed... In fact, I would like to know, where did you come across that on the streets? That's a very good question. How have I not come across that? That's pretty good. But yeah, I would definitely. That's the weird thing about ketamine is some people have like a very terrible reaction to it, but 90% of people have a very good reaction. So I can't say I recommend it to everybody, but I do recommend it to me, which I already did, so I don't need to recommend it to myself. But you get what I'm saying. You know, I think you would.
The logic is over the top here, brother.
Yeah, no, I'm over logicking everything. I think you would do pretty good. I think you would have a good experience.
I'm done with that part of my life.
Yeah.
But,
oh, okay. Yeah. Because that's another good point. Is once
I almost died from doing stuff. So
yeah, and I think that's the point. Is stop. I think is the point of that experience. You've gone too far. Stop. There's nothing more to learn here. Go back and keep doing what you're doing. And I think that's a pretty... Some people don't know what stop means. And that's when you see a lot of people sort of... what's his name? The original Pink Floyd guy. Not Roger Waters, the guy before him.
Sid Barrett?
Sid Barrett. That's what happened to him. He went over the deep end, and he kept going after he already went past that point. And gone. For decades, he lived in his mom's basement for 20 years, and then he died. Just totally insane. So yeah, I don't know how we got off in that tangent. Oh, that's because you brought up ketamine. That's right. Yeah, I don't know what that means. But anyway, so let's steer this in the direction that we initially intended. Yeah, I've noticed you have a lot of typos, Alan. I don't know if that's...
That's on purpose.
That happens all the time. I just want to let you know.
That's by design.
Yes, he says THC equals typo. I don't even know what to make of that. But in fact... no, never mind. So let's go ahead and get back on track, because the original thing that made me want to bring us over here and do this is... we were talking about chemtrails for a second, and he brought up a whole nother dimension of chemtrails that he started to talk about, and I stopped him from saying it because I wanted to save it for this, and that is this.
Aqueous chemtrails.
Aqueous
chemtrails. So one of my good friends I grew up with in Daytona, lived with him, or not with him, but down the street from him in Orlando, and he was a pilot for over 20 years. And he explained to me the contrails versus the chemtrails, and that no commercial pilots are actually doing it. That when we concluded that it was drones or something else that were actually doing the chemtrails through different aircraft. But the aqueous chemtrails are the ones that you don't see. And they cost a lot more. They cost a lot more than the ones that you can see. And... there is particulate matter in it, but the levels of barium, strontium, and aluminum and other particulate matter, it literally is 10 times more dense, but you can't see it. And it will land on your skin topically and be absorbed into your bloodstream. And it affects us way more than we even know, because we can't even see it. You can't smell it, you can't taste it, you can't feel it. But it absorbs into our bloodstream, and it is slowly altering our DNA and our DNA sequence and our DNA code. And the new 5G technology,
oh boy,
the new 5G technology that is coming out is directly connected to this controlling us. This controlling us. So think about it. They're emitting something from these aircraft that is absorbing topically into our skin, whether it's the chemtrails you can see or the aqueous ones we cannot see, that is literally being digested into our bloodstream, metabolized through our brains, through our heart, and all of our blood cells in our body. Okay, it's and then the new 5G that's coming out is deliberately being linked to this. and it's for control. But the most important thing is to know and understand, whether it's chemtrails or the aqueous trails that we cannot see, that if we know and understand that it is designed to calcify our pineal gland so that we cannot see through our spirit, the number one thing is to acknowledge that it's happening. If you don't acknowledge that it's happening, then you're just getting sucked into the control mechanism and you don't even know it. The most powerful thing that we can do is, I mean, it's a trip. I mean, I've seen more chemtrails in California than I have seen around the country in the last 2 years. You know, I saw a ton of them in Sedona, but I've seen more here than I've seen anywhere else. And I've seen a ton in Florida. I've seen them all around the country as I've been traveling around the country for over a year and a half now. Man. So what kind of control is that all about? And then the crystalline structure of children, supposedly you can cut open a kid and see that there is no, you can't anatomically prove that kids have a crystalline structure. You can't, but that's what they're selling and saying to us now. But if that's true, think about this. We're working on computers. Computers have quartzite in it. Okay? Quartzite is a conductor of electricity, but also non-physical energy, spiritual energy. So if the kids are becoming crystalline in structure, it's not for their benefit. It is to control them. So you add that to the chemtrails and the 5G, and the 5G is so dangerous. It is, and it creates cancer exponentially worse than our existing 4G technology. And you figure they're already using the 5G technology. And I'm not going to use certain networks that have been in the news out there, but they were going to interview me about this.
I mean, we're coming pretty close to 5G.
Yeah, and they, after I explained it to them, they didn't want to interview me. They told me that they would, and this happened to me a bunch about this also. And it goes into the Illuminati and the whole thing about control. And we were talking earlier about how certain individuals that we will leave nameless have talked about how all of the Illuminati, they're just going to give up and give back the trillions of dollars, and they're going to do the tribunals, and they're going to go to prison willingly. And I'm like, no, that, not to use any names, and we're not going to. I'm like, that cannot be true whatsoever.
Yeah,
there's so much disinformation out there. And unfortunately, where a lot of us are struggling financially, which a lot of us are.
Common theme.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of them, and most of the most legit people are the ones that are making money off their books and touring and conferences and getting paid and all this. But there's a lot of people, a significant portion. It is the minority, but there is a significant portion that are making a nice living off of lying to people.
Oh yeah.
About this stuff, going back to, the Illuminati's really going to give up. They would rather go to war. They would rather take us to World War III than give up any of the power that they have now. And I'm telling you, the chemtrails and the fluoride in the water and everything else, looking at computers, believe it or not, is part of MK Ultra mind control. And television,
absolutely,
television,
especially
and subliminal messages and everything. It permeates the entire world. We don't even realize it, and we absorb it every day.
Okay, so here's the thing. First of all, I have an ultimate point I will get to at some point throughout this show. Somebody remind me that I said that. Ultimate point. If I don't get to it eventually, just put ultimate point in chat, and I will remember. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm not going to forget. But, yeah, so, okay. First of all, a long time ago, this was back, I want to say 2007. 2007. Me and my best friend were one of my best friends, who is now, I would say his name, but he's a very well respected guy in the music industry these days. I don't want to, butcher his name at all, but he was with me, and so we saw. Now, mind you, this was right when Zeitgeist came out.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah, you remember that.
I do.
I'm sure if you're listening to this show, you've probably seen Zeitgeist. It's pretty much that simple. So here's the weird thing about Zeitgeist is, so this was in a forest town northeast of Houston, like literally woods with enough trees taken down to put houses there. That's where we lived. All of a sudden, this is like I think YouTube did exist, but we didn't really, YouTube was not what it was today. And it wasn't YouTube. It was all of a sudden a bunch of people had Zeitgeist on DVD. Where did they get it? Nobody knew. There's all of a sudden these DVDs are floating around. So that's the first question: is who made that happen? Who paid for that? How are all these DVDs here? Nobody knows where it came from, yet everybody has it. That was the first thing. And then after that, probably a couple weeks later, that hit our town like a wave. Like everybody in the whole skateboarding community and music community, everybody had seen it within a couple of weeks. Everybody. It was the talk of the town, literally. And then a couple weeks later, we're driving to the studio, and we see, what we would typically describe as a chemtrail cloud. Like, obviously not exhaust, clearly a chemtrail, which at the time we weren't very educated. And the only reason we noticed anything is because what trailed from the cloud was a mist of what I can only describe as black, glittery dust that rained from the cloud. We literally stopped the car, got out. Now this is you couldn't take photos with your phone at the time. But I had a camera because we skate and filmed and took pictures all the time. So we got out, we stopped, we took pictures of it. And to this day, I've never seen that was my first chemtrail I ever realized that I saw. But at the same time, I've never seen one like that, where it dusts off this black, misty, sprinkly shit. Has anybody ever described to you what I just described, or have you ever heard about that?
I have.
What is that? Or do you know?
I can't exactly describe it to you scientifically, but you figure it's something very real to the point where there's physical evidence on your body. So.
Yeah. And see, here's the other thing is my best friend that was there, the fact that he acknowledged that this happened is a testament to it happening. Like, if anybody has any doubts. And the reason why I say that is because he's let me try to find a non-offensive way to say this. He's of Jewish descent, which means he doesn't buy any bullshit that anybody sells, ever. Just like you would never buy that Shaquille O'Neal is going to make a three-point shot. Out of the question. No bets on that table. Nothing. This dude saw it and acknowledged it. We both saw it, and to this day we still talk about it. That's just, if man, I really wish I could say his name, because I think a lot of my friends that listen to his show would, I think that just the fact that he acknowledged that would change their minds immediately. But I can't say his name. I don't want to do that. But also, when it comes to chemtrails, so we had this guy on the show. I think we've had him on a couple of times. His name is Matt Landman, or Landman, as he pronounces it. Although I'm pretty sure he's pronouncing his own name wrong. I'm pretty sure it should be Landman. Anyway, he produced a documentary called Frankenskies. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Oh, man. It gets down. It's one of the best, front to back, properly displayed. He presented everything in the exact perfect order. One of the best produced documentaries I've ever seen. It's a little bit slow in the beginning, I will give you that, but it's perfect. It goes into the military back in the 30s and 40s, how they were very publicly stating, we're going to control the weather, we're going to control the world, and this is how we're going to do it. And they told everybody everything that's happening today. And they figured that out a long time ago, and they've been using it this whole time. But after, 10 or 20 years or whatever, they realized, we should probably not tell every single person what we're doing. And they continued to do it. Once again, the Olympics in China, I believe it was, 1 or 2 or 3 times ago. Couldn't tell you. But the Olympics it was about to be shut down because it was going to rain. But China publicly admitted to using weather-changing technology to not make it rain.
Wow.
And by that, I mean chemtrails. You can look this up too. I am not bullshitting you or anybody in the audience. It is 100% fact. Look it up. China, Olympics, weather control. They literally made it not rain. I wish I could have said they made it rain, but they made it not rain. And that's a fact, son. And America has admitted to using it in the Middle East in a couple of instances. But other than that, they actually deny doing it most of the time, when in fact there's just like Stephen Greer, he's got document after document, all this stuff about UFOs. Well, Matt Lamon's got document after document about chemtrails and what these guys are doing, and he's basically he's the guy, like the one guy that stands out, that's leading this chemtrail awareness community. And he posts, man, if you follow him on Facebook, every 10 minutes he's posting something rich, full of information. Matt Lamon, everybody. But yeah, I'd highly recommend you see that. And yeah, it's just okay. So here's the ultimate point I was going to get at real quick.
Yeah, I'm starving, brother. So.
Okay, so here's my ultimate point.
I need to eat some dinner.
So because I think we're probably going to go for about 15 more minutes. Can we do that? Is that possible?
Barely, yeah.
Barely. Okay, we'll barely do that. So my ultimate point is, let me tread lightly here. With all of this secrecy, whether it's UFOs, the secret space program, which we all know the Apollo missions were a bunch of fuck. Once again, I can cuss on the show because it's not on the network. I just want to remind you. The chemtrails, Darwinism, whatever you want. There's many layers of secrecy behind pretty much everything. I can't even like something as so unimportant as skateboarding. There are actually industry secrets that if you tell, your career is over. For sure. Like, no questions asked. That happens in every industry. Hollywood, music, whatever you name it. Everything from science, space, you name it. There are layers of secrecy. Like Armstrong once so delicately said, talking about the layers of secrecy, the protective layers of secrecy, I think he said. And that's what I'm getting at. The protective layers. Now, if you want to look this up, look up Neil Armstrong, I don't know, YouTube, Neil Armstrong, lecture kids, secrecy, something like that. Now let's keep in mind, ever since Neil got back from the moon, he did like 2 interviews ever after he got back. And they were both one was an interview. The second thing was a very brief lecture that he gave a very lucky group of kids for. I forget which school it was. But he actually ended the whole thing on, if you can figure out how to get around the protective layer of secrecy or something like that, you can actually make some advances. And when he says protective, that kind of gets to my ultimate point. Most people, when they think of secrets, they think of distractions and illusions and whatever, which it's pretty obvious in case you haven't noticed. Pretty much everything you see in the public is all smoke and mirrors. There's always another ulterior motive behind this statement and that statement, and this guest wasn't on this show for this reason, for no reason at all, rather. There's always a reason behind the curtain as to what's happening. Now, most people would assume, and rightfully so, that it's for a negative reason. And I just want to put out a big but. But, what if there's actually a very good reason why not all things, there's definitely some things I think we should know about that we're finding out about right this very now. But at the same time, what if there are a couple of things that perhaps it is actually in humanity's best interest that most people don't know what's going on. Antarctica. Oh, man. Stuck in my throat. Yeah, so that's pretty much my ultimate point. I think a lot of people, especially us in this industry, it's very natural for us to assume secret, problem, negative, bam. But wait a minute. What if you actually did find something, or you found someone, or you found some place that really would completely obliterate our mind? A lot of people say, bring on the disclosure. We're ready. Let's do this. I know there's a difference between believing in UFOs and seeing a UFO. I have personally watched at least 2 people, well, more, but 2 drastic examples of people that saw real things I was there with them and saw it too. That chain, like, they're basically dysfunctional human beings at this point. They're, living at their parents' house. They're not doing anything. They're not working. They can't. Like, they don't. It actually got to them on a social level to where they can't even talk clearly to other human beings. That's how deeply profound of an experience it was for them to see something like that. So with that said, I think we don't, in fact, nobody ever in this industry gives credence to the possibility, I was going to say the possible fact, but that doesn't make sense, does it? The possibility.
The possible fact.
The possible fact. Wow. That's a radio first right there. Yeah, but the possibility
That's what the show's all about.
Yeah, the possibility. I was about to make such a serious point.
And I went and messed up your whole mojo.
No, I messed it up myself. But yeah, no, seriously. What if, I can definitely see why there are some things that are not shared with everyone. For sure. Absolutely. Is that happening on a bigger scale than we usually admit? I would bet probably, and I think most people would bet probably not. So I just wanted to put that out there as a thinking thought for tonight. And with that, well, we've got a little... Well, actually, we have all the time we want. But we want to try to wrap this up in 10 minutes. So with that said, what you got? Bam, son. Try following that.
I'm going to change the subject because that's a hard act to follow.
That's all you can do.
So I'm at Stargate to the Cosmos in Albuquerque, October 25th through the 28th, and I start to hang out with Michael Lee Hill, and I meet him for the first time, and I've interviewed him before on Dr. Sasha and Janet Lesson's Aquarian Radio Network, and I'm like, man, I really want to get to know this guy. He and I have so much in common with the Anunnaki. We've both been Anunnaki contactees, written books about it. He has some of the best UFO footage you will ever see if you go to his YouTube channel, and also michaelleehill.net. He's got some just fascinating footage, and he sells actual recreations of Anunnaki technology, which is incredible. And it all plays into sacred geometry and the power of the 432 hertz. But anyway, he used to live in Cleveland forever, and now he lives in Florida. And I'm going to eventually get back to Florida, and where I'm going to set up camp in Orlando, he's like an hour away. So I want to go hang out with him and bring the night vision goggles and go hang out on the Gulf Coast. And there's actually there's a number of bases right out off of the Gulf Coast of Tampa, Clearwater, and St. Petersburg, Florida. And he lives right there. And, I've seen a ton of UFOs. He's much more of a magnet than I am. And I just want to go hang out with him. So we've already talked about I'm probably going to go down there for a week or so, probably in the next, probably in January sometime, which is a great time in Florida to go outside at night and go star watch. So that's my closing statements. So look forward to it, and then, I'll rebuild, and then I'll be back out west, and I'll look forward to doing some conferences. I believe I might be in Sedona at Suzanne Ross's conference sometime in March in Sedona.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that one. All right, so you're definitely like going back to Florida.
Yeah, unless something dramatically changes, which could. I don't know.
You never know.
You never know.
I didn't know you'd be here today.
I didn't know I'd be here today either.
So there you
and
go.
This worked out actually perfectly.
It really did. We had a time slot open, and in fact, I totally just now realized this is on our main show channel, which I did not intend. This is a B-side show, so I'm going to have to put that over there afterwards. That's probably why so many people showed up, because it went on the main feed. I really didn't want anybody to show up, but you did. But once again, Joe didn't do a show anyway, so I think we're all good. Okay, with that said, do you have any... Are you doing any books in the works? Any possibility of a new book?
I am.
already working on it?
Sedona My Labs.
Ooh, boy.
Sedona My Labs.
Dude, and let's not... I think that says it all in the title, but with that said, where can they get your previous books? Both The Blue Beings and Yahweh, the Biblical God, is an Alien.
And everybody butchers that title. You got it right.
I got
brother.
it right. Yes. Nuts.
Like,
right there.
Everybody gets
because
it
I
wrong.
have it, and I've
Yes.
read it.
john-polk-media.com. And you'll go to the website and you'll look at it and go, God, he needs to update it really bad. And yes, you're right. So, correct, but you can still order the books. Blue Beings is on sale right now via ebook for only $5. So if you go to Amazon, it's $15 for the paperback. If you go to get it through ebook, it's only $5 right now on special.
So it's john-polk-media.com.
It's the blue light special for the holiday season for the Blue Beings.
Yeah, and I won't say names, but we had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who, if I were looking at my phone during the show, I would have seen John's text and I would have asked him a very profound question that would have clarified a lot of things about the Blue Being experience. But I don't look at my phone during the shows, so that didn't happen. Next time I talk to him, though, I will definitely ask him that. I guarantee you.
But I will talk about it because he was on another show talking about it.
Oh, he's already talked about it publicly.
Yes, he's been on the Bren and Dave Weebly Time podcast. This was 2 years ago with Audrey Hewins, who is the one who put on the conference, and he talked about it. Now, he said that he didn't see them, but he was there, and he heard everybody talking about it. And he talked about it on the podcast. And then, at Contact in the Desert, Eric at Awakening Man and Tom Dongo and I were driving up first thing in the morning. We're walking up towards the resort, the Renaissance Resort out there in Indian Wells. And who do we see sitting on a bench out front of the hotel is Grant. And I start talking to him about it. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he admitted the whole thing in front of Tom Dongo and Eric and I. And he's real busy. He's real busy.
A very busy
he's
guy.
busy, and
Yeah.
everybody's hounding him for interviews, and it's all good. I'll be able to interview him at some point, so I look forward to it.
Yeah, I think the only reason he came on our show is because I was hanging out with the crew.
Well, and also my Tuesday night show, I believe, conflicts with things that he's doing already, so that that doesn't help.
Yeah,
It's like I'm not going to get Richard Dolan on my Tuesday show because I go up against Richard Dolan.
Dude,
all the time,
a hard guy
and he's
to,
he's killing it too.
He's killing it.
I love Richard.
Honestly, I will admit I very rarely listen to it, but I will say that every time I have listened to Richard Dolan's show, I was like fully engaged.
Oh, he's
blown
so good.
away, new information,
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
And it's what can you prove? That's Richard Dolan.
Yeah, he's
what
a
can
very,
you prove?
very no nonsense guy.
And if I can't prove it, I'm not going to say it.
Yeah, and that's what I like about him.
And if he has an opinion, he'll tell you this is my opinion. But I mean, I like that. And we, as the media, if you will, are often guilty. And I know I'm really bad about it. Is just saying this is a fact without.
Yeah, that's why I said a possible fact earlier.
I'm so bad about it. I'm talking about aliens, and we can't prove most of this stuff. So a lot of it is just hyperbole and conjecture, and also a lot of research, also which we can't prove our research either. So,
Man. Yeah, and with that said, if there's anything that you came up with, there's another word.
Came up with.
If there's anything you came up with,
Are you a lexiconographer over here?
I'm really breaking some barriers here. But yeah, if there's anything that you come away with from this show, it's that there is a term called possible facts. Next time you're trying to explain anything to anybody, throw that term in there and blow their minds because they won't be able to comprehend the illogical context of the words you just said. Possible fact, that is. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and roll out of here as soon as I can find the music. But, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, yeah, this wasn't supposed to be on the main channel. I will move this to the other channel. John, thank you so much for, doing the show, but also for coming to town. It's going to be pretty cool. We're going to have Thanksgiving tomorrow with a good friend of ours who lives very close by. Very gracious of her. And with that said, also, once again, wish Joe Roop a very hearty recovery time. Hopefully he can get better in time to eat some turkey tomorrow. And with that said, yes, we will be doing a show this Friday. On our main show, we have Anna Naturalista. That's right, folks. She will be back this Friday at 7 p.m. Pacific. And with that, we are going to boogie on out of here. Sometimes for the Fringe FM. In this case, not. This is kind of Shift Happens. This is our B-side channel. I don't know. I don't think I usually do outros for these. With that said, this show was hosted by yours truly, GG. And, well, I guess the guest was John. Kind of drove the whole thing, really. And then this show is also produced by me and also me. And then I produced the show, too, on top of that. And special thanks goes to Eric, Awakening Man, our roaming reporter, our associate producer, Brad Harris. You can follow him on Twitter at ADSBradHarris. And, of course, a special shout-out to Jordan McAvoy. Check out his band, InfiniteEmpireTheBand.com. All right, folks, we're going to get out of here, get some food, and play some pool. We will see you guys later. Cheers.